James Dorsey joins me now from Singapore. He's a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute of the National University of Singapore. James, good to speak to you. James, I want to start by talking about these visa restrictions imposed by the U.S. on settlers who've committed acts of violence against Palestinians in the occupied territories. What is Washington trying to say by imposing these restrictions?
I think it's a shot across Israel's bow, and it serves two purposes. One is to signal to the Israelis that the United States is capable and willing, when it deems necessary, to impose sanctions on Israelis, or Israel for that matter. And it also is intended as a message to the international community that the United States is willing to take action against Israel, and therefore an attempt by the United States to counter criticism of its support for Israel. I think there are two interesting aspects to this measure. One is it's not clear what that means for settlers who may be involved in violence against Palestinians who carry dual nationality, with other words, Israeli and American citizenship. There are a fair number of dual nationals among the settlers on the West Bank, even though it is a minority of the settlers that are perpetrating the violence. The second aspect is, of course, that what this measure stops short of is not only sanctioning those that perpetrate the violence, but also those that enable the violence. And that, of course, would point fingers at Israel's National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir.
And of course, that may be something that the United States may not do at this point. But these restrictions, will they make any actual difference on the ground to those settler attacks against Palestinians, which we know have become more frequent since October 7th?
In principle, not. But if you are an American national, alongside having Israeli citizenship, you have family in the United States, you have roots in the United States. What does that mean for you? Does that mean that you're barred from entering the United States? Probably not, because they have American citizenship and therefore a right to travel to the U.S. But then the question rises, are they legally liable potentially in the United States and therefore may not want to travel? And that, of course, may have consequences in their decisions on whether or not they want to participate in violence.
James, do you think that we could see other countries taking similar actions, mainly countries that are like the UK, which has been very supportive of Israel over the last few months with what's happening in the Palestinian territories and in Gaza? Could they possibly do something that also says to Israel, look, we don't approve of what you're doing and we're taking this type of action?
Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball. But having said that, potentially, yes. I think with the UK, one sees that they follow in the steps of the United States usually. And so therefore, it would not be illogical for them to adopt a similar policy. Other European states, including France, have become much more critical in recent days and weeks of Israeli actions in Gaza and on the West Bank, and therefore may very well feel that that is one way of showing that they have a greater degree of neutrality or independence in terms of their policy towards Israel and the Gaza Strip.
And James, on a slightly separate issue, the US, of course, has said that it supports Israel. And over the last few weeks, we've seen Washington say that Israel needs to do more to protect civilians in Gaza and allow more humanitarian aid in. There have also been a few differences, though, when it comes to what happens in Gaza after this war. Israel wants a security presence there, a demilitarized zone, as Netanyahu has called it. The US thinks the PA should have more authority. Do you think that these two are going to come to loggerheads potentially about what happens next in Gaza?
I think there's more than just a few differences between the United States and Israel emerging. That includes the conduct of the war. The Americans have been very clear at very senior levels in recent days that they want to see a reduction of the killing of innocent Palestinian civilians in Gaza. That has not happened. At the same time, the United States has been very clear in laying down, if you wish, the 5 no's. With other words, no occupation, no territorial reduction, no expulsion of Palestinians, no security threat from Gaza towards Israel. And therefore, at some point, there's going to have to be a give. I think the Israelis, and particularly Netanyahu, is pushing the envelope as far as he can with the United States. And the question is when the United States will call his bluff.
Yeah, that's the question indeed. James Dorsey, as always, appreciate your analysis. Live to us there from Singapore.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.